Hey, what's up? It's Ragan. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I am going to be tier ranking today from my office all of the books I read in 2020. Yeah, we're shooting this on March 25th, so I'm a little bit behind. But yeah, I didn't rate or review a lot of these books on my YouTube. I did rate them and review them all on my Instagram at Ragan's Reads. I thought it would be fun to go back, especially now that a few months have passed, to kind of reflect and see how my feelings have either grown or changed about these books compared to when I rated them. I read a total of 22 books in 2020. Yes, that dreaded year. I only read 22 books even though we were in lockdown in the UK. But that's okay with me because I had a head trauma and it was the first time I had picked up a book at all in 3 years, and I read 22, so I'm pretty pleased with that. And my goal for this year is to read 50, and I am on track with that. I've read 11 so far this year. So let's go ahead and get started on tier ranking all of the books I read in 2020, starting with the first book that I read, which was Ray Carson's Fire and Thorns. This was a book that is published in the US as Girl of Fire and Thorns, and I had ordered this off Amazon like week 1 of the first lockdown because I had seen a lot of reviews about this trilogy that said it was really good and it sounded like something I liked, and it ended up in the like what tier, which is my lowest tier. Like, what? Why did I read that? It just did not have a lot of substance in the plot. The characters were meh, and I just didn't really like it, to be honest. So it's in the bottom tier. Yeah. Nope, didn't enjoy it. But then I picked up Sarah J. Maas, one of my favorite authors of all time. I picked up her Crescent City. What is it actually called? House of Earth and Blood. Yeah, I picked that one up, and it was a long book, and there was a lot of sitting in the world, which I like. I like Sarah J. Maas. Her books, her big chunky ones, you sit in the world a lot and you learn a lot about what goes on, you know, day to day for these characters. And this book was it was close to 800 pages, and the last 200 pages were what made the book what it is and made me cry, made me love it. But those first 600 pages, my god, like, not much happens. It was a lot of building for this series to come. I think the sequel comes out this fall, but this is definitely one of my favorites from 2020. But because of how long it took us to get to anything happening, it's going in my second top tier, which is you've solidified a spot on my shelf. So this is a 4-star read for me. Yeah, it was good. Then I buddy read the first 2 books in the Shatter Me series by Tahara Mafi, and I know that this series is so beloved, especially to those of you who are my age, like 25, who read them as a teenager and then like kind of grew up into adulthood with them, and I never read them. This is a YA like dystopian romantic book about a girl who has powers, and yeah, there's a big love triangle, and the first book really disappointed me. I thought the character was whiny. Our main character, she didn't have a lot of thoughts going on in her head that made a whole ton of sense. Like, I wanted her to, I don't know, buck up a little bit and not be so woe is me. But it was okay. I'm gonna put this in the I didn't hate you, but I didn't like you either tier. I liked it enough that I continued on with the second book, which was Unravel Me, and that one's gotta go in the like what tier. I really struggled to finish this book. It was super YA angst, love triangle, but the love triangle, the boy that she was falling in love with, like, was this guy that she was already in a relationship with, like, brother, and he was a horrible person, and I just didn't get it. I don't get what I know that this book is like 6 books long, but I don't see the attraction to the love story in this book, and there wasn't a lot of plot for me to want to continue on, so nah, I sold those books. I had the first 4. Then I picked up, in no particular order, I don't remember what order I read these, but I read Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim, and this is the Take My Money and My Heart tier, which is the top tier, and it did. It took my money and my heart. I really love this book. It's about a girl who disguises herself as a boy in a like Chinese inspired fantasy world, and she has to make clothes for the emperor in this big competition. But it's so much more than that. That's like what the blurb is, like Mulan meets Project Runway. Everyone says that that's what this book is about, but it's really not. It's about this girl going on basically an adventure around the fantasy world, which I love. So she has to like travel around this really unique fantasy world with this man, and there's so much more to it. It's really well built with fleshed out magic systems, and I really enjoyed it, so much so that I went to Waterstones, the big UK bookseller, and I wanted to get the sequel, Unravel the Dusk, when it came out, and they didn't have it the day it came out, or the day it was published. They had it like a week later. It was so weird. I went to 2 Waterstones that day. But the sequel kind of let me down. I'm putting it in the You Solidified Spot on my shelf because I did enjoy it, and I love the first one so much, but this one felt really rushed. There was a lot of plot and no driving characterization that made sense from what we had seen in the first book, especially regarding the romance. Like, it just didn't make sense. I don't know, but it was good. It was good. I really recommend that duology. I also read Stolen Songbird, the first book in the Malediction series by Danielle L. Jensen. This was my first time reading a book by this author, and as I was reading this first book, I knew that she was going to become one of my new favorite authors, and yeah, she did. I've read 2 of her series now, and I'm reading the 3rd one currently. And the Stolen Songbird was so good. The first one I really, really liked. It's about this girl who is taken into this underworld of trolls, and like there's this whole big mystery happening. It's dark, there's romance, there's lots of really good magic. I really enjoyed it, and it explores a lot of different kind of relationships throughout this trilogy. The first one was really good. The second one, Hidden Huntress, was even better in my opinion. This time we're moving out of the troll world and we're into like a Parisian inspired setting, and that one was really good. The third one was not as great. It was a lot of plot for the sake of driving action kind of storyline. I feel like there were a lot of things that didn't need to happening just to bump up the, I don't know, adrenaline, but I felt like it was really slow. It took me a long time to read, but at the end of the book I was crying because it was so good. So yeah, I really liked it. I then read the Songbirds Overture, which is the prequel to the first book, and that was great. I think that those chapters should have been in the first book. In fact, when I was reading the first book, Stolen Songbird, I thought, why don't we have a little bit more backstory? I felt like it would have helped with us being understanding, empathetic to the character. We did end up getting it in this prequel, which I think needed to be written, and it was great. Yeah, so that series is on my shelf to stay. Then I finally got around to V.E. Schwab's Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. The first one, A Darker Shade of Magic, amazing. I really love this. This takes place in London. There's grey London, white London, and red London, and there's a whole lot of magic happening. It's dark. It's so good. I know so many people have probably read this series. I really liked the first one. The second one, do I put it in the I didn't hate you, I didn't like you very much, or I enjoyed you? I think it has to go next to Shatter Me. I did not care for it. It took me like 3-4 weeks to finish this book. It was super boring, and part of the reason that it took me a long time to get through is because it was about this big tournament. It said on the back of the book that there's this big magical tournament that's happening. So you anticipate that the plot's going to drive from there. We didn't even get to the magical tournament until, I don't know, 2/3 of the book in. Like, a good chunk of book before we got there. And even when we got there, it wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be. So I actually have been in the middle of the third book since I read this one back in, I don't know when, like late summer, early fall. I haven't finished the trilogy because the second one really let me down, but the first one, very good. I know I need to finish this trilogy. Then I read at some point this year No Ballet Shoes in Syria, which is the only middle grade book I read. This is about a young aspiring ballet dancer who is a Syrian refugee in the UK, and I gave it 5 stars. I'm gonna put this in the I enjoyed you. I'm keeping this book. I really did like it. I think it did a really good job exploring this heavy topic for younger audiences. So I did like it. I read it in a couple days. Yeah, it was good. Another one of my favorite authors that I recently discovered in 2020 was Margaret Rogerson, and she wrote An Enchantment of Ravens and Sorcerer of Thorns, both fantasy standalones. Amazing. I really, really like her writing style. It's lush, it's whimsical. Yeah, there's romance, there's paint, like this girl is a painter, and then this one she is a librarian who protects magical books. I thought they were both excellent. I really, really liked them. I will read anything that she puts out. Then, because I love fantasy romance, I picked up Radiance. Yeah, it's going in the bottom. I heard so many good things about this. It's a self-published fantasy romance by popular self-publishing author Grace Draven, and the covers are like really pretty of all her books, but this one, which is the only one I read, I ended up just skimming the second half of the book just to find out how it ended because I couldn't get through. It was really clunky in its writing style. There wasn't enough background text to the world or the system or how these people interacted with these like other beings. It was odd. It's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, or inspired by retelling. I don't think I'll read anything from this author again, which is unfortunate because I know that people who like fantasy romance, like me, tend to really like her books. The only thriller I read is a YA thriller called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I'm going to put this in the You Solidified a Spot on my shelf. I was pleasantly surprised by this book. I thought that it was really well done, especially for YA. I guessed part of what happened in the beginning, so that wasn't super surprising, but the second half of the mystery I did not guess, and I'm considering picking up the next 2 books in the series. I think they're like companion books that follow the same girl, but I'm not like rushing to read them. I think I'll get to them at some point, but it was good. I then read Girl, Serpent, Thorn by Melissa Vanderdash, and I'm going to put this in the I enjoyed you tier. This is a sapphic romance. I did like it. I think that there could have been more done. It was a standalone, so if it had been just maybe another 100 pages longer, I think that it would have like been more fleshed out for me to follow and understand this main character's development in her characterization. There were several points that I bothered with. Her decision making bothered me, but other than that, I thought that it was pretty good and I did enjoy it. That book is up for sale on my Depop if you want to get the Fairy Loot version. I don't feel like I need to reread it, so I am selling it. This book, Mermaid Moon, where do I begin? That is going in the like, what did I just read tier. This is a dark retelling of The Little Mermaid that is published as YA. It definitely, in my opinion, should be new adult or published as adult. There are a lot of things that bother me about this book. What we got on the synopsis wasn't really what was delivered in the book. I thought it was going to be more romantic and fantastical, and it ended up just being this really kind of dark, grim mystery. And at one point there's this like old witch that tries to sexually assault a boy, and I was like, this is not for me. I did finish it. It's a beautiful book. like physically the pages are really nice and the hardback is really pretty. Not for me though. It's also for sale on my Depop if you would like to get it. The Court of Miracles, another really highly anticipated release from 2020. Not for me. I ended up DNFing this book. I am including it here because I do feel like I read it. I read over 100 pages, I think 150 pages. So I dedicated about 3 hours of my life to this book, and it just did not work for me. I didn't like the writing style. One, it felt really clumsy. It's also another beautiful physical book to own. Yeah, not continuing on. This is a Les Miserables retelling, and nope, not for me. Girl on the Golden Coin. I really liked this book. I'm putting it in the You Solidified a Spot on My Shelf tier. This is a historical fiction about Frances Stewart, who was the mistress of a few kings. She is a real life, or was a real life person. I have a review on this book on my YouTube channel, link up above, and I will also link all of these books that I have reviews for down below. This was really good. I think that it could have been longer. She definitely, the author, condensed this book and her life of like 42 years into, you know, 200 pages or so. So we would jump like, I don't know, 4 years on the next page, and we would suddenly, it was very fast paced, but I did like it. I ended up researching her and also King Charles and King Louis the 14th a lot. So I enjoyed it. And yeah, I think that my mom found me that book for $1 at Dollar Tree, and it was one of my favorites of the year. So yeah, pretty good. The very last book that I read was Lovely War. Oh, this was so good. I'm putting this in the Take My Money and My Heart top tier because I really enjoyed it. This was another really highly anticipated release of the year. It's a YA historical fiction. It's about Aphrodite and Hades and Ares, Greek gods and goddesses, telling two stories from World War I, and it kind of like blends into World War II, and I thought it was so exceptionally well done, especially for YA. I don't read a lot of YA historical fictions. I read a lot of adult, and this just felt lovely. Like, I had a really good time reading it, and I was also reading it on the beach, and yeah, I enjoyed it. So there you have it, all of the books I read in 2020. Not that many, but I would say a successful reading year. Like, looking at this, my highest tier is the top tier with the most books, followed by You Solidified a Spot on My Shelf. Those average books, you know, I don't know. I'm really hoping that I will enjoy the Darker Shades of Magic trilogy a lot more once I finally finish the third book. I'm like halfway done with it, so I think I might have to start over with the third book. But yeah, I really enjoyed all of these. So that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you read any of these books, if you agree with my opinions, if you disagree. I'm always curious. I mean, take my opinions with a pinch of salt. Reading is so subjective, and it's totally okay if you hate the books I love and you love the books I hate. I didn't know Shatter Me is definitely going to be one of those controversial ones. Also, Sorcery of Thorns, I think is kind of controversial. I think a lot of people think it's too, like, buttery sweet and too young YA, but I really loved it. Yeah, let me know. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!